Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to talk about is our alternatives to Rolex watches. Now, the reason that I thought I would talk about that is not because anything's wrong with Rolex, but rather because it's so popular, right? One of the results, of course, is that you can't get one, and then all kinds of other things. And some ADs make you pay a premium, which is basically price gouging. And the other thing about this is that I took a look around at some other work that's been done on alternatives to Rolexes, and most of them have been basically, well, if you can't afford a Rolex, get a Tudor or get this or get that. This isn't exactly like that. I've been collecting watches for a number of years, and I don't have a Rolex. A lot of times people have told me, well, if you're going to have a watch collection, you need to have a Rolex. Well, I don't believe that any more than I believe that one of the watches I like should be owned by anybody else. So let's take a look at some alternatives. Some of these are very expensive alternatives, some aren't, but they're another just sort of looking at things. Now, the first one I want to start with is a Rolex Sky Dweller. And the Rolex Sky Dweller is one I happen to like a lot. There are a lot of Rolex watches I really like, and you'll see that. But there's some other ones I also like, and I like them. And generally, I like them. I would rather have one of them than a Rolex. Nothing against Rolex. It's just, you got a choice. You make it. All right. Well, the Rolex Sky Dweller, what I like about it is a number of things. First of all, one of the little things that's sort of often difficult to see is there's a little red dot on this about 8 o'clock. Now, what that red dot means is that it's the 8th month. And so that means it's set to October 28th on the one that's pictured here. And there is a lot of really interesting technology. This is also a dual time, and the dual time is done in 24 hours. So you don't have to worry about it's night or day. You can simply look at the, if it's 22 or 23 hours, I think, as it's showing here, then you know it's night. If it's 1200 hours, then you know it's noon. Okay, now on the other hand, there's a Parmigiani Fleurier Toric Hemispheres retrograde. And this one won an award for the best dual time watch. And it's got a hand date for 31 days, but doesn't have the day doesn't have the month. That's one thing that, like I said, I like that about the Rolex. But it does have some other things too that I do like. Well, first of all, I like hand dates, and I like they have a day-night indicator. Now, the other thing about this, and then this is important, is that you can set it the top knob or I guess crown, the top crown there. You set the top little window, and you can set it to half hours if you want. So if you're dealing with some time, for example, in India, and you're on the hour and they're on the half hour, you can set up the watch for that. Now, I have an older version of that, and instead of having the hand date, it's just got a little date window. Otherwise, it's the same watch. This one is listed for 24,200 Swiss francs, which is about $30,000, which is a lot of money. However, you can get some of the older ones in sort of they're called the Tanda hemisphere. They got the same movement. They're very similar. It's almost the same movement. It doesn't have the retrograde date on it. So you have these, so you're looking at some different ones, and I like the award-winning watches. I mean, there's a bunch of people say, hey, these are the best watches, and so that means something, as opposed to a bunch of, Rudy Poo collectors who are out there, I like this or I like that, collector gang, so to speak. Um, so anyway, so this is one of the things. Now, like I said, this one shows a lot more. But if you just get the previous version, you can probably get them, I think, as low as $7,000 or $8,000. I don't know if they're new, but at that price. They also have them in gold, and of course, I think the Rolex Sky Dweller's in gold too, but then it goes way up. Okay, now the next one are two watches that are both incredibly popular. was First of all is the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. The Daytona is very, very popular. Let me see up front. I'll tell you now, I don't care for chronographs. And the reason I don't care for chronographs is that they got a lot of clutter, and I almost never have any use for the kind of stopwatch timing that you have with a chronograph. But I've got nothing against them. They're just ones I wouldn't get myself. Now, on the other hand, there's the H. Moser Streamliner Flyback chronograph. Now, this chronograph, I happen to like the Streamliner cases. That's a matter of taste, believe me. And I like the way this is, the movement in there is called an Agenggraph, which is this incredible chronograph that is nothing like sort of the history of chronographs that we're used to. And now this one's $45,000, and if I'm not mistaken, it's probably you're gonna find a waiting list on just about all Rolexes. There's some kind of waiting list. One of the things about some of these other watches is there is not a waiting list. But here are two watches, both extremely popular, but totally different. The Moser flyback chronograph, and again, this is another award winning. When I talk about award winning, I'm talking about Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève. Okay, and I think ever since, I think Rolex entered once in 2007 and didn't win anything, didn't even make the nominations, and so they quit. The other hand, they put it into Tudors, and Tudors have done great. Now this next one is one I've talked about before, the Rolex Air King, which I like the Air King, and I know a lot of people can't stand it who are Rolex fans, not non-Rolex fans. I like it for a lot of reasons. This is the most recent upgraded version, and I like that too. Now, another one, I think, this is one of the things I've been told, well, you should have a Rolex in your collection, and I would tell people, well, you should have a watch in your collection by a designer that you're familiar with. I mean, that's a sort of a contemporary, actually, watchmaker. The Harboring 2 Felix is a great example of a watch by a renowned watchmaker, Richard Harboring. This is Harboring 2 is Richard Harboring and his wife Marie. And the watch they have is hand wound, very, very straightforward, very Bauhaus, I suppose. And this watch, it's an incredibly accurate watch, hand wound. You flip it over, you can see the back. It's not an automatic, but yeah, this is one that you might consider, and it costs less, and that's the MSRP price on it. So there's another thing to consider as an alternative to one type of Rolex. Now this next one is very unlikely, but let me see if I've got it here. I have one of these. This is a dual time watch, and the Rolex Explorer for a very, very, very long time was my favorite Rolex. I changed my favorite Rolex. Unfortunately, I don't have any, but that doesn't stop me from liking different ones. And this one I just like because it's clean, it's simple, and clear as a bell. And on the other hand, the Van Cleef and Arpels, Pierre Arpels, RDC et Oer d'Ayer, which means time here and time elsewhere, has dual jumping hours. It has a retrograde minutes, and then I showed the back. The back of this thing is really amazing. Now, that's one thing about most of the watches that I'm going to suggest as an alternative to a Rolex is that you can look and see the back of it. Rolex does have some watches that you can do it with, but one is brand new and the other one they quit making. So that's another story. And so this the Explorer 2 versus the $25,000 one. This one is they're totally different, but they're doing the same thing. They're totally different insofar as that the Rolex Explorer 2 is more of an everyday watch. In other words, you can go out and you don't have to worry about bumping it in here and there. On the other hand, the RDC Iridier is more of an executive suite formal watch, but the thing about it that I like is a horology to it. Quick story, in 1949, Pierre Arpels wanted a gentleman's watch, so he designed one and they put it together, and I think they used the Piaget movement. I'm not positive about that. And then they kept redoing it up in the years, and I think it was around 2012, 2013, they decided, look, we got to have a modern watch. We want it thin, that was important. We want it to be automatic because the original one was not an automatic. And and we want it dual time. Well, they hired Jean-Marc Viderec, who was the very first watchmaker to win the award for the Watchmaker of the Year at the Grand Prix Award. So, and he had done some other things for Van Cleef and Arpels. And they said, well, just take this if you'd make a module for this, and then you can use the same Piaget movement. Well, he says, no way that can be done. So he started from scratch. And so you have a movement that was done for a purpose. It wasn't sort of a general thing, we'll throw this in every watch that we have. Interesting watch. The Rolex Explorer as an everyday watch, as a travel watch, would be great. But like I said, this is an alternative way of thinking of things. It's not saying, well, if you can't afford a Rolex, here's something cheaper you can get. This isn't quite that direction. Now, this next one, here are two watches. I'm conflicted here. I think the Rolex Yachtmaster 2 is getting the Deep 6 by Rolex. I think they quit making them. You can still find them on their website, though, if you know how to look for them. And this is the thing I like about it. It's got a countdown mechanism that I really like. Now, it's $18,700. Now, the Ulysse Nardin Marine Regatta, this is one they also canceled it, which is sort of too bad because I think it was 2017, it won the sports award, the Grand Prix Sports Award, and for doing the same thing. I am totally convinced that one of the reasons it won, it has the very best watch video I have ever seen. It's so cool. I have it. You can see it, a little link for it up there. If it's not there now, it'll come up in a second. But here are two watches. I don't have a yacht, but I just thought, well, these are cool watches because they both have countdowns, and a countdown is all connected up to a regatta. They're both 44 millimeters. They're both made of steel, and they both have really these countdown mechanisms in them. A lot of Rolex owners can't stand a Yachtmaster. I know that. They don't like the looks. They don't like that, or whatever about it. I think they're cool watches. Either one of these, I wouldn't mind having at all. But I don't know what I would do with them because I don't have a yacht. Sort of, whatever they are. Now, the Submariner is another one that that I like, and I think it has this particular one has the same movement as the Air King. I think it's the 233301. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, this is a watch that's extremely popular. It doesn't have a date window. which is something I'm really tell you I'm not crazy about because at the end of the month usually you got to flip it around and get the date squared away. Now, an alternative to that is a very different kind of watch. They don't make them anymore, but there are a lot of them available. This is a Roger Dubuis Easy Diver. I had an Easy Diver, and I got this watch, which has that sort of the same movement, the RD14, the Roger Dubuis 14. Now, this is another watch where you have the designer made, the watchmakers designed movement in it, and there's a lot of things to this. Now, when I think it was 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, Patek Philippe told the Geneva Seal Foundation to go jump in a lake, and they're going to have their own. They were upset over the fact that the Geneva Seal Foundation didn't want them to use silicone. They had no silicone in the watches because of the metals and so forth that they had. Well, getting a Geneva Seal is no easy thing. Most of them now you're going to find in two watches. One is Vacheron Constantin, and the other is Roger Dubuis. Now, there's some in Chopard, I think, but there aren't a lot of them. They're really something. It's a Geneva Seal, and this watch, this is sort of another. This is not a Easy Diver, but it's got a lot of the same characteristics of it. It's got this big rubber band with 3 lugs on it and so forth, and it's got heft, real heft to it. And they're running between 3,000 and 7,000. The one I had, like I said, I sold it because once I got this one, I realized they were the same, very similar in a lot of ways, and thought, well, I'll keep this one and sell the Easy Diver. But I can tell you, very accurate watch, heck of a, and for price-wise, you can do a lot better with them. They're in all different kinds of colors and so forth. The Rolex Submariners, I don't know why they did this. They have it in one color, black, and that's it. Whereas the Submariner date that has a little Cyclops date window, they come in, oh gee whiz, blue, green, a lot of different colors. But anyway, I like the black ones. I'm not much into black dials on watches because of the sight thing. It's easier for me. But these two, both of them, it's easy to see the white against the black for telling time. But that's another alternative. And this is, believe me, the Roger Dubuis Easy Diver is one heck of a I think it's really a great watch. Now, the final one is this new one. It's called the Rolex 1908. Now, what Rolex had done, much to my chagrin, well, part chagrin, but my delight, really, actually, just about all of the men's Rolex watches have the parachrome hairspring in it. In other words, they have using transitional metals. Rolex, Swatch, and Patek Philippe had gone in together to develop a silicone hairspring. Now, there are all kinds of advantages to a silicone hairspring. I choose not to listen to them, not because they're not true, but because I'm not interested in that aspect of a watch, okay? What I want is traditional metals in it. And that's what you get with a parachrome hairspring and all of the other men's watches, I think. This one, for some reason, in the 1908, they decided to put in the siloxy, the silicone hairspring. I'm not sure why, but they did. If you flip the watch over, you can see in the back. That's another thing. In fact, all of the other Rolex watches we looked at, you can't flip it over and see what's inside of it. On this one, and you can see exactly what you can see, the RD14 movement in it. Now, they did it on this one, so they did a lot of things that I really like, and they seem to have gotten rid of the Cellini line. There's some left, even the Cellini Moon, but I think they really have Rolex had said, look, we make sports watches. We do a good job of it. So what do we need these other ones for? And then they came out with this 1908. And it's really a very attractive watch. And it sort of is a Calatrava kind of style that to it. Now, an alternative to this, if for a gold watch, and it has silicon, and you can live with that, a silicon hairspring, is the Breguet Classique 5930. They're both about the same size. The Classique is 40 millimeters. The Rolex is, in this particular one, is 39 millimeters. And the Classique has the silicon balance spring in it, just like it's the same as Siloxy in terms of they're both made of silicon, with the advantages and some of the disadvantages, I might add. But this would be another alternative. I like the Classique better, just like just the looks of it, and it costs less. But there's nothing wrong with the other one. The thing I like about the Rolex 1908 is that it has the what are called observatory hands. You got one with a big poem at the end of it, and then you have one that's straight. On the other hand, the Breguet Classique has another set of hands I like. These are called Breguet hands. Anyway, those are some thoughts that I had on this. Like I said, I don't own a Rolex. I've got nothing against Rolexes. But since everybody else has been doing an alternative on how to save some money, this is not one how to save money. Let me know what you think. It's an opportunity to subscribe if you like. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.